Hey there, folks. My name is Lucas Martin. I'm our business development manager here at ARC Advisory Group. Our analysts make it a priority to monitor the key technology changes, vertical industries, and any regional trends impacting the global business environment as a whole. This is a new market update segment where I'll pick the minds of our industry experts here at ARC Advisory Group. We'll chat about the scope of the market, the supplier landscape, key growth and success factors, and any key trends they may have discovered through their research. Now, let's not waste any more of your time and hop right into the interview. Today, I'm joined by Dan Keyser. He's an analyst here at ARC Advisory Group. Dan recently finished a 2023 global market analysis report on simulation software, and I wanted to set up some time to share a little bit more with the audience. Dan, thanks so much for the time today. Can you just touch on the overall scope of this market and maybe kind of how you defined it?
Sure. So it should be noted real fast that we're talking about simulation software for discrete products in the discrete market, not for process. We at ARC do have a separate study on simulation software for process, right? So the scope of this, what we really have to ask is, what is simulation software? And simulation software allows businesses to design, simulate, test, and validate their product in simulated real-world environments. And they can do that through a variety of modules like finite element analysis, which is probably better known as structural analysis, or computational fluid dynamics, or electromagnetic. There's also multi-domain physics analysis, which combines more than one of those modules together to test and evaluate the product or component under a variety of situational factors. So when we're talking about the scope of this, we're looking at products that specifically test and validate what your business is looking to create for real-world environments. We're also looking at digital twin technology as well.
Great. Thanks a lot for the comprehensive answer there, Dan. So can you maybe give the audience an idea of the supplier landscape?
So the supplier landscape is kind of sparse, to be quite frank. There's 5 suppliers that make up, I think, over 80% of the marketplace. The top one is Ansys. Your second up is Siemens Digital Industry Software. You have Dassault Systems out of France, MathWorks, and Altair Engineering. Ansys, Siemens, and Dassault make up more than, I think, 65% of the market on their own. And adding in MathWorks and Altair brings you over that 80% threshold. So this market, despite being so big, I think roughly close to $8 billion, is really controlled by a select few top players in this market. So I think it's also interesting to talk about the regional on this. The North American market is far and away the largest, but it's relativistically close to the European, Middle East, and African market, which is also relativistically close to the Asian market. And you have Latin America as the 4th largest market. And that's partially because the industries that are involved that are buying up the simulation software. SimSoft has traditionally always been used for like aerospace and defense, which it's still very, very popular in. But it's also been used in like automotive, which we're seeing a rise in, and I'll talk about that in a second, electronics and electrical engineering as well. For example, on the automotive engineering, the first car that ever actually used simulation software was the GT40 in 1966, when Ford invested a huge chunk of time and money to take on Ferrari at Le Mans.
Very interesting. So, Dan, while you're doing the research for this, did you maybe uncover a growth factor or a success factor that you wanted to share with the audience?
We are seeing that there's an adoption of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and I know that gets conflated a lot, but we'll just say artificial intelligence. We're seeing adoption of artificial intelligence into simulation software more and more from the suppliers that we've talked to. They seem very excited about bringing in artificial intelligence because of the machine learning principles and the ability to process information and data faster and more accurately, especially in regard to digital twin solutions that we're seeing also lead part of the market. Digital twin as module, I think, is the 2nd or 3rd largest overall within the simulation studies, and that's because companies are really, really excited in using digital twin as a digital transformation technique to apply to their businesses to min-max and do better maintenance, better production, just a better understanding of how their machinery works and operates and how to get the best and most out of it. The other thing that we're seeing as well is the multifunctional or multi-domain simulation platform that I talked about earlier. That seems to be the largest part of the market now. Companies really aren't buying from suppliers simulation software that can only do one thing. I want to be able to go in and check if my product works for rotational forces. And then I also want to check for like computational fluid dynamics. I want to check for electromagnetic interference and lidar interference, and all of this that goes into it. And a good example of this, and I mentioned a little earlier that I'll get back into this, is the EV market that we're seeing right now. And that's part of the reason why Europe and Asia have seen such a rise in simulation software in the last year or so since we've done the study, is because they're investing very heavily into EV. And EV requires that you have an understanding of what happens when your car gets into a crash, the electronics within the car, the computational fluid dynamics of aerodynamics for the car, and the technology is a huge thing. I mean, we all have cell phones, right? And you need to be able to have that interconnectedness both within the car and for the car on the road to connect with other people. So that's part of the reason why we're seeing such a rise. And those are
Okay.
a few of the market trends.
Well, thanks for that, Dan. So let me kind of flip that question on you. Was there maybe a growth inhibiting factor or maybe a few that you might have uncovered?
So the obvious one is there's always the possibility that there's going to be a macroeconomic downturn due to socio-political situations that may or may not be happening. So that's a big one, but that affects everybody. The major ones are a continued reluctance to adoption necessarily outside of those industries that I've mentioned, because there's simulation software for everything nowadays. Pretty much anything that you can do or want to do, like drug discovery is a huge one that's just come out, and I believe Dassault actually has a product specifically for that uses simulation software for drug discovery. But there's a reluctance to adopt simulation technology. And part of the reason for that is the other growth inhibitor, which is the complexity of simulation software. You don't have to be a subject matter expert with multiple degrees in it by any, stretch of the imagination, but it does require legitimate understanding. And because of this, there's kind of a lack of skilled professionals. So they're very in demand in the market, and there's just an overlap in the failure of understanding and in the complexity of simulation software of these skilled professionals.
So Dan, let's kind of pivot the conversation a little bit. Let's say I'm an end user, an asset owner looking to purchase some sort of simulation software. What strategies would you recommend to those folks?
Well, I mentioned before digital twin and digital transformation. So if I'm looking genuinely to get into the Internet of Things and I want to bring Internet of Things to my business, IIoT, Industrial Internet of Things, and I'm looking at digital twin, definitely have to develop a strategy for that, number one. Number two, simulation platforms offer concurrent design validate capability. It's this model-based design that I talked about a little earlier when I said that simulation software allows you to design, simulate, test, and validate your product, right? That is a huge advantage for you because you can do it concurrently at every step of the design process before you bring your product to market, and that can have huge advantages for you. And then finally, I also mentioned this a little bit earlier as well, is there's simulation for pretty much everything. I mentioned that Dassault had a new drug discovery simulation software platform out specifically just for drug discovery. But there's also simulation software out there for infrastructure. There's simulation software out there for other scientific endeavors. There's simulation software out there for environmental impact. So it really can be a transformative process if you incorporate it into your business. And I'm sure you can find something out there that specifically details to your needs.
Interesting. So Dan, I know we're running out of time here. Was there any other key trends or points you wanted to share with the audience today before we wrapped up?
I'd be interested to see where cloud is going with this. There seems to be some interest in simulation software in the cloud, but it'll be interesting to see how that develops.
Okay, absolutely. Well, again, thanks a lot for the time on behalf of the audience, Dan. We really appreciate it. Just a reminder, folks, we have links to our website in the description below. You can contact us directly through our webpage there. We'd love to discuss how, market data, analysis, technology selection guides, and overall reports like this can help out your company. Thanks again for watching another market update episode, and we'll see you on the next one.
If you like what you saw in this video and want more informative content, be sure to like, comment, and hit the notification bell below. Also, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks again, folks. We really appreciate the time, and we'll see you in the next video.